Welcome to Presidential Fight Club, the show that answers the question, if all 44 presidents fought each other one-on-one, who would win? Hosted by two history professors who have too much time on their hands, Scott Rank and James Early. Well, welcome everyone to round two, the third fight. We have quite a rumble on our hands because somebody is entering who hasn't been there before, a little president that you might have heard of named George Washington. He is going up against a returning champion, John Tyler, who in round one was able to knock out James K. Polk. So James, George Washington, the man, what does he offer as a fighter?
Oh, what can we say about Washington? Washington was 6'2", weighed about 200 pounds, so about the same size as me, actually, but much, much tougher. Washington, he was interested in military service from a very young age. When he was only in his early 20s, 21, 22, he joined the Virginia militia. He marched out he marched out by himself the first time. He was not literally by himself, but he was in charge. He was the senior commander of a small group of soldiers or so, about 100 people, that he was sent out to tell the French to stop building Fort Duquesne. The French had been gradually moving southward and coming into contact with the English, who were starting to move westward in the colonial period. This is the 1754 or so, and Washington said, "Stop building the fort." And the man said, "I don't think so. Who is he telling me to stop building the fort? I will not do this." And Washington was just a kid, really. I mean, think about it. He's early 20s. The human brain is not even fully formed until it's 25 or 26. I always remind my kids of that. But anyway, so Washington, he ends up being sent home with his tail between his legs, and he ends up being defeated basically in a small battle. But he had courage. I mean, here's a young kid going out there and telling the French where to get off, basically telling them to scram, get lost. And then later he came back as an aide to General Braddock, a very experienced and older British general who went out to try to force the issue and to defeat the French and run them out of the fort, this time by force. And he walks into an ambush, Braddock does, and Braddock is killed, and Washington takes command and brings the unit home. And but here's an interesting quote that Washington wrote in a letter to, I don't know, it was some kind of relative. I can't remember exactly who he was writing to. It doesn't matter. But this is what he said. He said, quote, "I heard the bullets whistle, and believe me, there is something charming to the sound of bullets." There you go, charming. So this is a man was maybe just a little bit crazy, at least as a young man. He was, and it was said that his coat had bullet holes in it and his hat had bullet holes in it, and he had horses shot from under him, but Washington seemed to be invulnerable. So you can punch him, but it's just going to, your fist is going to come flying back at you and bouncing off. We know about Washington's history of fighting in the Revolutionary War, how he was constantly leading just ragtag units who were undersupplied and underfed and often didn't have the right equipment, didn't have enough clothing, didn't have enough shoes, and was going against one of the best armies in the world, and yet he kept them alive. He didn't win a lot of battles necessarily, but he won the ones that counted. And Washington, he suffered through the cold winters and all the harsh conditions with his troops. He didn't go and hang out in someplace warm and safe, like Boston. Actually, Boston's not terribly warm now that I think about it, but maybe during the summer, he could have found some heating. But Washington was just tough. He, as we know, he was raised in a fairly wealthy environment, and he became wealthier as he got older. He married into some serious wealth, and Washington. So but he was somebody who really enjoyed also working on his farm, doing physical labor. I don't know they did a lot himself, but he did some, and he rode horses like a lot of Southern gentlemen. And so Washington was just one really, really tough customer.
All right. Well, I have the task of explaining why John Tyler, widely considered to be one of the worst presidents, is going to beat up the father of our country. And I should say here that with a lot of voting for this contest, it's hard for people not to have sentimentality votes. They have romantic views of Washington or Lincoln or other people, and it's hard to have that not affect your voting. But I'll just say one thing here, and this ties into how maybe Tyler's bad reputation isn't totally deserved. There's a concept called the MacGuffinization of American politics. So a MacGuffin is a thing in film that the hero is looking for, and we don't care what the thing is, just the hero is looking for it. So Indiana Jones is looking for the Ark of the Covenant. Luke Skywalker is looking for plans for the Death Star. It really doesn't matter. It just kicks off the plot in motion. So the MacGuffinization of American politics is sort of like, well, the MacGuffin are the policies of the president, and we don't care what the policies are because we want a hero story of the American president and that he has to do big things. And it doesn't matter what those big things are. It doesn't matter what the Constitution grants him. He just has to go out and have some daring do and be the hero in his own story. So this is where John Tyler comes in. And I'd like to dedicate this defense of John Tyler to a previous guest on History Unplugged podcast, Brian McClanahan. Don't agree with everything Brian says, but he is a free thinker who has a PhD in history, and he thinks John Tyler is the greatest president in American history. Why is that? Because John Tyler thought that he should only do what the Constitution provided him the powers to do as president and nothing more. He defends his oath of office, and that's it.
Wow, what a concept.
What a concept. But what that means in action is that John Tyler enters after William Henry Harrison dies after 30 days. He's called His Accidency. He's eventually kicked out of the Whig Party. His own cabinet hates him because he vetoes so much legislation. He goes against the policies of Henry Clay, who's also in the Whig Party, who wants to pass a bunch of laws designed to centralize the American economy through a central bank and higher spending. So due to ideological differences, Tyler was against it. Tyler responded that if his cabinet didn't like what he was doing, they could resign. And eventually they did. So I'll say that Tyler, he's not this weak, spineless, do-nothing president like a lot of people say about him, where whether you think he was doing things for good reasons or bad reasons, he had a very strong resolve to do what he thought was right, what he thought a president should be doing. And he even renames his plantation Sherwood Forest because of seeing himself as a hero in this conflict. So if we measure executive success by how the president defends his oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, this is how you can argue Tyler is arguably a good president, and he has a very strong resolve. And if he thinks his cause is right, he doesn't care if he goes down in flames. He doesn't care if history judges him wrong. He will stand by his principles. So I would like to think, James, that I made the compelling argument that John Tyler defeated George Washington in battle. Am I right?
Wow, 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 wow. Sorry, father of our country gives him the old 1-2, and that's the end of John Tyler. This was an overwhelming vote. Another one. This round, in some ways, is almost not fair. Andrew Jackson, James Monroe, George Washington, 3 combat hardened veterans who love to fight, and a bunch of wimpy guys. But yes, sorry, John Tyler, you're out.
Well, I'll just say this about Washington, and I won't say too much because I'm sure there'll be more to say later. But another thing that helps him out is, contrary to popular belief, he didn't have wooden teeth. He had different dentures throughout his life, and sometimes they were fashioned from lead or ivory or teeth of humans or cows or other animals. So he could at least bite you viciously, if nothing else, with all of his various dentures.
Ouch.
Well, okay, so Washington definitely advances in a big way. We have another founding father in the next fight of round 2 and the final fight of round 2, and he's going up against a modern president. We're going to see Thomas Jefferson go up against our beloved peanut farmer, Jimmy Carter. Thanks for listening to Presidential Fight Club. If you'd like to download your own printable bracket sheets for each regional tournament so you can guess how the tournament will go, check out presidentialfightclub.com. We'd appreciate it if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts as well. Thanks for listening, and may you fight with the stamina of Teddy Roosevelt, the courage of George Washington, and the reach of Abraham Lincoln.